The winter fuel allowance vote happened, and the government won the plan to scrap it. They say to restrict it to all but the poorest pensioners, so they said they're going to means test it. The majority of people have had it taken off them by 348 votes to 228. So almost every single Labour MP who was at least present voted for this. One Labour MP chose not to do it. His name was John Trinket, and he's about to lose the whip because Keir Starmer is merciless over that sort of thing. So they won by a majority of 120. Every single other MP from every other party voted against it.
So I've seen Labour MPs holding placards before the election saying, I will vote against withdrawing the fuel allowance with a signature, and they voted in favour of it. And I've
Comrade Starmer looked at them and they were like, Christ, actually, I will vote for it.
Well, not sure the icy stare of
funny,
machine man.
Funny you say that about
Keir
Comrade
Starmer.
Starmer. You decided to remind me of this morning. This was, let's have a look at the date, 30th of April 2024, so before the election was even announced.
Not exactly ancient history, though.
No.
I went to Dewsbury winter before last, in the height of the energy prices going up, and spoke to an 84-year-old woman, worked all her life, obviously now a pensioner, and she told me that she doesn't get out of bed till midday because she didn't want to turn the heating on.
Yeah, it's awful.
And then when she did get out of bed, she had this sort of thermal jacket that she just wore all day long, so she didn't have to put the heating up very high. That's an awful position to put a pension.
Just a quick thing. This is starting to make Starmer's decision to take the winter fuel allowance seem vengeful. She really pissed him off or something.
She voted Tory, so I'm going to...
Yeah, exactly. She voted Tory.
This is like when Gordon Brown got into the car and said bigoted woman, basically.
Yeah.
He's got absolute contempt for his voter base. Bear in mind, in 2017, Labour said that if the Tories had done this, this would cost 4,000 pensioner lives a year.
Yeah.
So as the...
So they've got a number.
Yeah, well, the retirement age has... Like, the number of people retired has gone up since, so billions must die, Keir Starmer.
They're constantly worrying about global warming, but it's the cold that kills people. Like, they're worried about, people will die of overheating. Well, 10 times more people die of the cold.
Yeah, Bjorn Lomborg's got good numbers on this. Also, winter fuel allowance probably wouldn't even be necessary if energy was cheap and plentiful. Like, if you could afford...
if we had nuclear power plants.
And fracking as well, because most central heating is run on gas.
If only we had an oil field in the North Sea.
I know, quite, yeah.
drill, baby, drill.
If we tapped about 10% of that, we'd be energy independent for 50 years. But no, we're not allowed to do that.
That information about the vote in Parliament, though, that was interesting to me, because I didn't know the exact numbers. But that seems to be like a harbinger of the future, because 120 is not close. In other words, even without the iron hand, the iron gauntlet of Keir Starmer, they'll still probably be able to win anything.
But it's also remarkable.
Even if everyone else in Parliament votes against it, 120 is not close. 20 or 30 is not that close.
It goes to show you, the kind of, insane tyrant that Starmer is. He can make the socialists, who love giving away government money, rescind it just by saying no. No, every single one of you, apart from this one guy who's going to get booted, are just so cowed. It shows you the level of control, the iron grip that Keir Starmer currently has over the Labour Party. Because this is the last thing that any Labour MP wants to do. I want to give everyone government money. What are you talking about?
Well, they had shame shouted at them from the galley when the vote went ahead.
From the hardcore Conservatives.
Shame shouted at who, sorry?
People that were in the Commons were shouting shame at the Labour Party.
Oh, right. So I'm surprised that even people that probably hate Starmer in the Labour Party, I don't know, someone like John McDonald or old Corbynistas or that Budgeon bloke or the few people that he yeeted right in the beginning, I took the whip away. Did they not vote against him just out of spite?
They voted against him, yes.
They did? They did do that? Okay.
Yeah,
right, okay.
There's a list of all the MPs here. They're technically listed under independent because they've had the whip withdrawn from them because they voted against him on a previous one and he punished them for that. Here we are.
But they're still Labour MPs, right? Even if you've had the whip removed, you're still a Labour MP, right?
They were elected as Labour MPs, but as you can see there, John McDonnell, Zara Sultana, Richard Bergen, Aspana Begum,
Bergen, that's who I meant.
They're still being punished. So I wouldn't be surprised if they all defect into this Jeremy Corbyn-style independent Gaza bloc.
I mean, to be honest with you, this would have been the time for 100 Labour MPs to have revolted and just said, no, we're not going to vote for that because our constituents are going to hammer us. They're not going to forget this.
I thought that would happen straight away. It's not happening straight away, but it almost certainly will, right, Connor? At some point in the next 4.5 years, at some point there'll be over something.
When Keir Starmer says we're going to euthanize them all now.
They're all in favour of that, remember?
Yeah,
because they're trying to pass the assisted dying bill. I reckon something like that will happen because
isn't it?
Starmer's very unpopular and he's been bucking Blair's advice consistently to the point where Blair is now actively counter-signalling their immigration policy. So I wouldn't be surprised if Blair manoeuvres things and has someone... Well, I've heard rumours that Andy Burnham will be put in a safe seat by-election to prop him up as a potential member of cabinet to then take over from Starmer, and then it might possibly be that Lisa Nandy takes over as his second in command because she's a woman and they're both in the north. And in the Labour system, you have to run like a president VP style ticket. It's not like the Tory leadership election, so you have to pick a pair. That's the rumour, and I wouldn't be surprised if that happens.
Burnham and Nandy. I'd rather stay with Starmer. Actually, would I? I don't know. Am I being sarcastic or not? I don't even know.
Yeah, well, that's the point, isn't it? It's like, look, Starmer is evil, but Nandy and Bergen. Useless.
Andy Burnham.
Oh,
yeah.
but Andy Burnham. Right?
Yeah.
Sorry, useless.
But he's not perceived to be useless because he led the inquiry for the Hillsborough disaster. So if they've alienated the North, they think they might get that area back on side with him. That's genuinely the optics of this. A few details for our American friends who don't have to deal with this policy. Basically, winter fuel payments are made about 200 to 300 quid in November and December, and they'll still be available for a slim minority of pensioners who are on pension credit, but not most of the state pension, and definitely not on private pensions.
Just as a quick thing here, I mean, I actually agree that they should be means tested, not in the way that Starmer's do. I'm thinking, anyone over 60 grand a year or something doesn't need it, obviously. But Starmer's like, yeah, but that's still costing me money, so we need to.
But also, the pensions as well are taxed, which is also mad.
Yeah, it's
like if you go over the
grabbing as much as that back as we can.
Well, yeah, exactly. So your income that you invested was then taxed to be saved, and then if you earn over 12,500 income tax threshold from your pension every year, you then get taxed on your pension at about 50%. And
then when you die of the cold, Starmer takes that.
Yeah, with your inheritance tax.
I know, yeah.
It's almost like the whole thing's a scam, isn't it?
Can I ask a question about the triple lock? Because I'm not a pensioner, I never really pay any close attention to all those news stories when they're in the news all the time. I'm just like, oh, that doesn't affect me. Everyone does that, right? But there's this idea of the triple lock. I know about that, at least to a small extent. Didn't they keep promising again and again and again that they won't get rid of the triple lock? And then even after this story's gone through, people saying, well, we haven't got rid of the triple lock. The triple lock's still in place. So can you just explain that? I mean, what is
the triple lock
is or isn't real in all
the triple lock means that the state pension rises in line with inflation, average wages, or a set amount every single year.
So it's not actually how much money you get off your heat bills in any direct sense.
It's nothing to do with that.
Okay.
But what the Conservative Party were promising at the last election is to quadruple lock it to make it exempt from income tax, because it was due to rise with inflation past the income tax threshold. Because Labour have kept the income tax threshold, it's one, likely that the pension will be taxed going beyond it, and two, they've now taken off this extra allowance for the majority of pensioners that goes towards their winter fuel bills, which was not counted as part of the state pension.
I've got a definition of the triple lock here. The state pension goes up each year by either 2.5% inflation or earnings growth, whichever is the highest figure.
I couldn't remember what the percentage was. Thank you very much.
Don't blame you.
So
still, that can all be rest in place, and Labour can still say, oh, but your heat allowance thing, we're going to scrap that, and it doesn't actually touch the triple lock thing. Okay, I got it. Okay.
The reason they're doing this, the BBC have explained, and this is the justification, it's meant to shave 1.4 billion off the welfare bill for this year as a step towards filling a 22 billion black hole that Chancellor Rachel Reeves says exists. Now, I had this explained to me from a senior political source earlier in the week. The reason they don't touch the other things, which would probably look like better optics, like foreign aid, money spent on asylum seekers, or climate change, is because those are committed amounts per Acts of Parliament. So it would take them 2 years to overturn that. And you're thinking, okay, well, that would just be smart, right? The Office for Budgetary Responsibility, that sets the amount of money they have to shave off, works on an annual cycle. They won't count that as savings because it's not going to happen this immediate year. So they say you either have public sector pay rises to cut, which they can't do because they've just pledged 11 billion, or the pensions. And you also can't cut any government department spending because every single government employee has a year's notice period. So it would fall outside of the budget. So you can never actually shrink the size of the state according to the annual budget.
Well, it does beg the question, though. You say, you can't do something for 2 years because it's already locked in. You could, because they're a government with a big majority, can they not pass a new act that either repeals the old one or a new one that just supersedes the new one, saying, no, we're doing it right now?
Yes.
They can do that.
Yeah, but they presume
So-
every institution is neutral, and they presume every institution has accurate modelling, and it's all a scientific process. So they think, oh, if the OBR gives me this number, because they're really stupid, they just think this is exactly what I've got to do here and now. So this is the expert advice, and so therefore I have to follow it.
They're just pretending they can't do it. They could pass an act of parliament getting rid of the OBR.
They could do emergency legislation, actually. This is what I was also told. But they don't want to admit it's an emergency scenario because then they'd have to admit that basically their immigration fiscal policy, which they supported under the Conservatives, has led to an emergency situation. So they're caught in the ultimate double bind. So this is why they're doing this. This is why they're taking away your nan's heating bill to house illegal migrants. By the way, on the topic of the 22 billion black hole, turns out it doesn't probably exist. So the FT decided to put in a Freedom of Information request to the Treasury, and it was declined.
Oh, are they allowed to do that, are they?
Yep. Yeah, they're allowed to just not give you the data. They're not allowed to give you the reason. Apparently, the response from the Treasury's Information Rights Unit said details would be published respecting agreed timelines, quote, to allow the relevant officials time to complete the preparation of the information to ensure it is accurate and correct prior to publication. AKA, don't ask questions. We're already doing what we want.
Yep.
And usually, the OBR get their findings completely wrong. I mean, there was stats recently released that their modelling, according to the Trust mini budget that blamed her for crashing the market, 2/3 of that was due to the Bank of England, both before and after the budget. So yeah, they're not exactly brilliantly.
We run a country and a government and an economy before the OBR. Can get rid of them,
You would think.
clear them out.
There
Would be wise.
are so many government departments we could gut. You know, I could
Afuera, is that
I
the
could
word?
I could get to the point
Afuera.
of making a surplus in the budget if it were up to me.
So
vote for
when you
me.
hear Dominic Cummings talk about you actually can't do loads and loads and loads of stuff because loads of things have been put in place to prevent it. We'll clear those out then.
Just, you've got a huge majority, dissolve it.
Yeah.
Get rid of it.
Yeah, but the ideology of both.
No,
the
but
people
But they
that-
don't want to, right?
Yeah. As with the people that are above Cummings as well. It's all on rails. It cannot be moved. Quite interesting as well. It says one of the biggest disclosed components of the information that's given out was 6.4 billion on asylum and illegal immigration. Because for those who don't know, in the foreign aid budget, the first year of any new arrival is spent out of our foreign aid. So we spend the majority of foreign aid within Britain. I think Andrew Jenkins found that it was 14 billion is spent on asylum every year, actually. So even if this black hole is that exact amount, the majority of it is spent on illegal migrants that arrived here this very year.
The takeaway, we spend 14 billion on illegals breaking into our country. Right? And that's just from that. I mean, there are going to be loads of other costs, the kind of hidden costs that come down the line after that. But in the immediate, we spend 14 billion.
Well, if we try and find out what they spend it on, they also just say we're not going to tell you. So that the Home Office refused to reveal the cost of furnishing a block of flats to be used by 346 asylum seekers in Hampshire. John Edwards, the Information Commissioner at the Home Office, rejected another Freedom of Information request. Ruling in favour of the Home Office, Edwards said the public interest in revealing the costs to the taxpayer of the furnishing was outweighed by the need to protect the asylum seekers from protests and risks to their health and safety. It was reported the apartments were furnished with satellite television.
I'm going to protest the bloody Home Office. I mean, literally, the sign there, down with the Home Office. Like, it's inevitable that if you like, hey, we're going to give loads of money to whoever can rock up on our shores, then you're going to get people. I don't even blame them. It's our own government for doing this.
And just to put it in some sort of perspective, 14 billion, what an astronomical number that is.
Oh, God, I don't even...
Right. The Channel Tunnel cost 15 billion. One of the most impressive, biggest engineering projects man has ever completed. The James Webb Space Telescope, the greatest object ever created by the hands of man, cost 10 billion. That cost 10 billion.
Yeah, well, so does Abdul. All right?
We could be pushing the frontiers of mankind, and instead we're pushing the frontiers of ruining our own country.
Yeah, well, if you want some more depressing stats as well, the OBR, of all people, came out today and said exactly how much low-wage migrant working is costing us.
Hang on, just a quick thing. This is something they haven't wanted to say for a long time, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've had to rely on the Danish stats for quite some time.
And the Netherlands and the Swedish. The problem is they've also fudged the numbers here.
Of course.
So I'll just read this out. So each low-wage migrant worker costs £150,000.
So this isn't refugee. This isn't asylum seeker. This is just legal migrant we allow in to go and pour our coffee at Pret.
Or
Is there something I
deliver
could
us a
hit?
sandwich.
I'm so annoyed.
Well, you're going to be more annoyed. The idea is that this is by the time they reach pension age, which is 66. so modelled from when they were 25. But the average for Britons, because the average working Brit puts in 280,000, like they positively contribute that by the time they reach 66, that starts at 0. So it's factoring in their education costs, but it's not factoring in the education costs of any migrant that arrives earlier. And also, the British average is British born, not ethnically British. So second generation migrants, which we know from those Netherlands studies repeat the same patterns as their parents, are also dragging down the overall average. So if we had the ethnically British one and it was matched with the ages of the people coming in, the numbers would be a lot worse.
Do need people to pick the strawberries for us, though, don't we?
I think we have the machines.
Even though, yeah, we were always able to manage that before mass immigration. But
Yeah, somehow I remember eating strawberries as a kid, actually. I don't know how it happened. Somehow.
Yeah.
We're being basically exploited to an astronomical scale.
Yeah.
It's not even funny, is it?
It's not funny. No, it's not. I'm absolutely furious.
I know.
It's an ethnic patronage scheme. That's all it is.
Crime
We've
beyond
willingly,
comparison.
well, not we, a few select few people in Westminster, in the political sphere, have made a client state out of the British people willingly to fund people who hate us and are killing and raping us at a degree well above the native population.
Let's assume that there's not a single crime involved, right? Let's assume that not a single one of them creates crime. Okay, I still don't want to be taxed to give these people my money. Like that's in and of itself just a supreme injustice that renders us as a subject people to this global order.
It gets worse. This is if they live to 66. If they live to 80, it's £500,000 a person. If they live to 100, it's £1 million per person. So they calculate that if all migrants earned 50% less than the UK average, the debt to GDP will rise to 350% by 2074. Now, bear in mind the Japanese economy is on the precipice of collapse at 250%, but that's 50%. The current number of the 150,000 by 66, that's 150% less than the British population. And a recent stat that we all found out was that since 2011, 74% of all jobs created in Britain have gone to these people. They've gone to migrant workers. I wonder why our GDP per capita is flatlining.
But the Runnymede Trust are winning. They're happy. They're getting exactly what they want.
I'm just looking
Founded by
forward to
Lisa
the
Nandy's father, incidentally.
As hope not hate. And
Yeah.
People need to understand the implications of this because this is absolutely massive. We're basically slaves to foreign people.
You're a cash cow for these.
Yeah, exactly. People need to know that this is going on because this is so infuriating that you work your entire life just to be taken advantage of by people who make your life objectively worse in every metric. No,
Why do you
way
think
is
they're
this-
so disrespectful?
Mm.
Like they know they've got the upper hand on you, and that you've got nothing that you can do, and the state's going to make you pay for it. And if you say anything out of turn, you're going to be called a racist and criminalised, and you'll go to jail. They know.
But they absolutely needed to cut the winter fuel allowance. Remember, they absolutely have such a black hole in the budget. They need to cut the other thing this doesn't count for is the over 10,000 foreign nationals in British prisons. So we're also paying to house those, battery farming foreign criminals like no tomorrow. Some of those have been let out, actually. Some of them have been released because, of course, we had to lock people up for dodgy Facebook posts in the aftermath of the Southport atrocities.
Labour's second client group, criminals.
Yeah, well, some of them, though, didn't get released that long because this chap here, these are the kind of people they're letting out. Seconds after he was let out of prison, he was immediately rearrested for rape.
I need to laugh, but that's a serious commitment to crime, isn't it?
How is that even possible?
I'm not even off the property of the prison, and I've somehow sexually assaulted someone.
Yeah, following an inquiry to the Met, it had emerged the man, 28, was arrested on suspicion of rape, sex assault, and racially aggravated public order offences, raising the question why he was ever lined up for early release in the first place. 1,650 other people were also released on the same day. I'm sure they're all squeaky clean.
I know how you can get room in the prison with that guy.
What do people like James O'Brien or Carol Vorderman say about something like that? What
Nothing.
do
They don't
Oh, no. Carol Vorderman went out on LBC or whatever it was and kind of apologised, didn't she? Did you not see it?
I don't know. I think she has me
Apologise for
preliminarily blocked.
Well, she-
I've never
for
interacted
everything
with her.
she's ever said?
No, just for endorsing,
Those dodgy loans.
endorsing Starmer. She was like, "Well, actually, I'm a political independent." You see, it's like, really, you seem like a hardcore Labour partisan. leading up to the election. And she did this interview where she was like, well, I don't actually like the idea of freezing to death 4,000 old pensioners, and so I'm kind of regretting my Starmer.
It'll be memory hold by the next election cycle.
Yeah, maybe.
This won't be though. So we've already paid for foreign criminals. We're already paying for foreign dependents and low-skilled foreign workers. We're already paying for illegal migrant satellite TV. So why doesn't Sadiq Khan just give them a house?
I don't
I couldn't believe it when I saw this.
It's genuinely comical how evil our government is.
Well, he's also dressed like a prisoner for some strange
It
reason.
is, yeah.
Yeah.
But so he told that
Well, he lives in London, doesn't he? So
there's probably a stab
Like
vest
he's a
under there.
recruit in police academy.
Good reference. So Starmer told the Times' Crime and Justice Commission, there is a big shortage of housing in London. I wonder why.
Stop importing people then, idiot.
Yeah, but how would he be voted in? But that there needed to be an honest conversation about the need for some prisoners to, quote, jump in the queue to avoid them re-offending again.
he really does look like one of the vulture guards from Disney's Robin Hood, doesn't he? He just every time I look at him, that's all I can see.
It's the safety on old Betsy.
Yeah, exactly.
He says
It's the same height as well.
a certain percentage, it's the honest conversation we've got to have with people across our respective cities and stuff to explain the reason we're doing this.
Okay, yeah, I want them back in jail, Sadiq. That's the honest conversation from my
Well, that previous guy who's like a double rapist, I've got a solution for him.
yeah, just
Or the Justice Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, thinks they shouldn't get houses instead. We should repurpose the asylum hotels to give them paid temporary accommodation. Right. So that hotel down the street, it's not just going to be full of illegal migrants, it's going to be full of actual criminals.
I mean, at least
And
she's not
we're
offering
all
them
paying
foot
for it. But remember,
Jesus.
your nan has to freeze this winter because they just can't afford it.
No, I don't hate this country. I hate the people ruling this country.
I hope you appreciated that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters, and if you want to see what else we're putting out, you can see this speech from Carl, and if you want to see all the other work that we're putting out, you can follow us on Twitter, where we post links to everything. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.